Okay, so this lesson is I can find the area, circumference, the arc length, and the area of sectors of circles. So two of these should be familiar to you, the area and the circumference. And then the last two may be a little new, but they're derivative of those other two formulas. So let's go over these real quick. Okay, so this first one we have the area formula for a circle. It's right here. Area equals pi r squared, and remember that r is the radius. So sometimes they'll give you the diameter, and you'll have to know that a diameter is twice as long as the radius. So just stuff like that from elementary school and middle school that you'll have to remember. So that's a formula you should already know. So the new one, we're talking about the area of a sector. So when you think about area, it's like how much pizza you have, kind of think like that. And then when you're talking about area of a sector, you're thinking about just a slice of the pizza. So a certain proportion is what you're looking at. So down here, remember this little sign here is theta. That's the Greek letter for it just represents an angle measure. And then sometimes they'll use like an x or they'll just use that theta sign, but it all means the same thing. It's talking about an angle measure. And then r is still the radius. So if you look down here, it's theta divided by 360 degrees, because remember a circle is out of 360 degrees, and then you're going to times it by pi r squared. So really what you're doing is whatever theta is divided by 360, that's a certain percentage or a certain fraction of the circle, and then you're timesing it by the area formula. So if you notice, that is the area formula right there. So it's pretty easy, and we'll do some problems with it in just a minute. Okay, so here's the circumference formula. Remember, circumference is kind of like, if you're thinking about a pizza, it's the crust. So it's the length around a circle is what you're doing. So there's two formulas that you may have remember. So if you're looking at just the radius, it's 2 times pi times r. Or sometimes you learn it with the diameter formula, so it's pi times diameter. And just remember that the diameter is equal to 2 of the radiuses. So both of those are exactly the same thing. Okay, so let me clean that up just a little bit, get rid of that stuff. So that should be a formula that you are familiar with. So the arc length is kind of like just a portion of the pizza crust. So it's like if I just wanted just to know this part, the formula for that is going to be x. And remember, x can be x or it can be theta, so these could be the same thing. And that's just that angle measure. And you're going to do it over 360 like you did in the previous one, and then you're going to times it by 2 times pi times r. So I just want you to notice that that is the circumference formula. So it's just a portion of the circumference. So it's pretty easy. So area is talking about the entire pizza, and then area of a sector is talking about a slice of pizza. Circumference is talking about an entire pizza crust, and then arc length is talking about just a portion of the pizza crust. So that's how you think about those, and it's pretty easy. You just have to know the formulas. So we're going to do this one together. We're going to find the area and the circumference. And there's two things that I want you to understand. Sometimes a problem is going to ask you to find the area or circumference something in terms of pi, meaning that you actually have the symbol pi in your answer. Or it may ask you to find like to the nearest tenth or to the nearest 100. So that's when you actually multiply by pi. So I want you to understand the difference between those. So on the left hand side in red, I'm going to do the area. So remember that area is pi times r squared, and r is your 15.6. So I'm going to do pi 15.6 squared. And remember to please use the pi button on the calculator, not just 3.14. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find it in terms of pi. So all you're going to do is you're going to put this part in your calculator and find that. Alright, so 15.6 squared is 243.36. And in terms of pi, you would just put pi beside of it. So that's your answer in terms of pi. And then if it asks you to find to the nearest tenth, you would actually multiply that number by pi, and you would round it to the nearest tenth. So in terms of pi, it's 243.36 pi, and then to the nearest tenth, it's going to be 764.5. So that's just two different ways that an answer could ask you to find it, and both of those represent the same thing. You just have to read the question carefully. They're going to ask you for one or the other. Alright, so on the right hand side, we're going to find the circumference, and we're going to find it in terms of pi and to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to have two different answers. So remember that circumference is 2 times pi times radius, and radius once again is going to be that 15.6. Alright, so first we're going to find it in terms of pi. So you're just going to take the two numbers and multiply those two together, and then just write the symbol pi beside of it. So you get 31.2 pi. So there's one answer in terms of pi. And then the other answer is to actually just multiply those together. So to the nearest tenth would be 98.0. Okay. Alright, so that's how you do that, and that should not be any new information. That should be stuff you already know how to do. You just may not have heard the in terms of pi and to the nearest tenth, that difference. So hopefully you got that. Okay, so now we're going to find the arc length and the area of the sector. So remember, arc length is like just a portion of the pizza crust. I'm going to put crust right here so you remember. And then area of a sector is like a pizza slice. So that's what you're doing, if you can think about that. Alright, so think about if you're finding just the crust, you need to find the circumference. So the circumference formula is 2 times pi times r. And we're going to have just a certain proportion. So we want to find the length of ST, and usually if I was in a different program, I would be able to do like a symbol like this. So there's usually going to be an arc over that, just to let you know that you're actually finding the length of this arc right here. That's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find that pizza crust right there. How long is that? So what you got to do is look at the angle that's making up that. So it's 122. And remember, that's out of 360, because that's what circles are out of. So we got 122 over 360, that's a fraction, times 2 times pi, and the radius is right here, it's 10. So all you gotta do is put all of that in your calculator, and I would round to at least 2 decimal places if it doesn't tell you what to round to. So I got, let's see, 21.29. So that is the length of ST. Okay. Alright, so now let me erase this, and now we're going to find the area of the sector. So when I talk about area of a sector, I'm talking about like this entire slice of pizza. How much is it? So it's going to be a percentage of the area formula. So area is pi times r times squared. So here's our r, that's 10 squared, and we're going to do a certain percentage. And so 122 degrees is what makes up that sector, and that's out of 360. So all you do is type that into the calculator, and once again, I would use at least 2 decimal places if it doesn't tell you how much to do it. So I got 106.47. Alright, so hopefully you understand that difference. So when talking about arc length, we're talking about the crust, we're talking about the circumference, and when we talk about area of a sector, we're talking about a slice of pizza, we're talking about the area formula. Alright, so I want you to try this one. Sorry, you can't see it. I want you to find the arc length and the area of the sector in bold. So I want you to understand that this angle from here to here is 288. So you need to find this little angle, and remember that circles are out of 360. So I want you to pause this, and I want you to try it, and then when you feel like you're ready to go on, you can play and see what I come up with, and maybe I'll help you explain it a little bit. Alright, so pause button in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to find the arc length first. So remember, arc length, you are talking about the pizza crust. So I know that that circle is out of 360, and the purple part is 288. So if I do 360 minus 288, this part in red has to be 72 degrees. So the arc length formula, I don't know why I chose yellow. Let's do 72 out of 360 out of a total circle. And then I'm going to times it by the circumference formula. So times 2 times pi, and then I want to times it by r, which is 9.5. So I got 11.94. Okay? And then I want to find the area of the sector. Area of sector. Alright. So it's a percentage of the total area. The percentage is based on how many degrees it is. It's 72 degrees out of the total circle 360. And then I'm going to times it by pi times r squared. And r is just the radius, 9.5. So I got 56.71. So hopefully that made sense. Just remember that arc length, you're talking about a pizza crust, you're talking about a certain percentage of the circumference. An area of a sector, you're talking about a slice of pizza, a percentage of the area. And then also remember to read the question carefully, because sometimes it may ask you in terms of pi, which you'd actually have a pi in your answer. And then sometimes it would say to the nearest tenth or the nearest 100th, whatever they want you to round to. So hopefully that made sense. So hopefully you can find the area, circumference, arc length, and area of sectors. And if you can't, please email me and we'll talk about it. All right, thanks.